Welcome. A short distance from this theater is historic Fort Moultrie, where you will have a unique opportunity to trace the little-known story of coastal defense in the United States. The changes of more than a century and a half, expressed in fortifications and weapons, have been preserved here by the National Park Service. Your visit will be much enhanced by following the distinctive tour markers as you walk back in time from the Second World War to the American Revolution. One final word. For your safety, please observe the regulations posted along the way. A fort can be hazardous, even in peacetime. And now, the story of Fort Moultrie.
The end of every other branch of the art of war is to destroy, oppress, and enslave. The end of fortification is to preserve, to resist, and to protect. Fort Moultrie looks small and sort of ineffective now, doesn't it? A string of forts like this, some big, some small, protected 3,000 miles of our coast. Fort Moultrie shows almost 200 years of changes brought about by many things, military, social, and economic.
Quite as hectic as it was during World War II. This was a joint Army-Navy harbor command post that controlled all the ship movements in and out of the port of Charleston. You know, the history of coastal defense is a story that goes a long way back, right back to the American Revolution. And you can trace it for almost 200 years right here at Fort Moultrie. Was like here in 1776 for an artillery sergeant like myself. How many times I told them about this? We were hard by it with England. Why, the British were no more than 400 yards off this beach, and we drove them back. We let our bulldogs bark, we did. Bunch of kings, bad bargains they turned out to be. You won't see them back in the Carolinas soon. There are a few other forts scattered up and down the coast in the other colonies, states. But it's not going to be enough to win the war. Why, to protect the port of Charleston, we built this fort here on Sullivan's Island in 6 months. If I might say so, it's a lovely piece of business. Let me show you something. This fort is constructed with palmetto logs, 2 rows of them filled with dirt between. And we used palmetto logs because that's all we had. Turned out to be a great advantage. You see, palmetto has this fiber which absorbs the shock of the balls without splintering. Follow me, I'll show you something else. We're ideally located. We sit at the harbor entrance, close by the main ship channel. Any vessel coming into the port of Charleston comes within range of these guns. It takes my 5 lads to fire this gun. They do a good job of it.
Designed to garrison 1,000 men, the still incomplete fort was challenged by a British squadron in June 1776. 300 determined men under Colonel William Moultrie, using muzzle-loading cannon, turned back the British fleet. It was one of the first American victories of the Revolutionary War, frustrating British attempts to invade the South. The British returned in 1780. This time, they bypassed Fort Moultrie. Landing to the south, they laid siege to Charleston. It fell, and Cornwallis invaded the southern colonies. Although victorious at first, the British marched to defeat at Yorktown nearly 2 years later.
Our Palmetto logs stood up well to the British cannon, but not to the coastal storms. Last year, when His Excellency General Washington came to visit here, there was nothing left, just what you see. Islanders had carted off what the storms had destroyed. Now, I hear we're not alone. Everywhere up and down our coast, the forts are in a sad state. The government says we're at peace, but I don't trust the British, or the French for that matter. Up to no good, if you ask me. I read just last week that President Washington is demanding action from Congress to protect our coast. Our new nation needs new forts, as you can plainly see. After all, nobody's going to do it for us.
European turmoil threatened to involve the young republic. Begun in 1794, the first system of American forts was crude by European standards. Mostly earthworks, with some masonry, they featured one open tier of guns. They included a second Fort Moultrie, which was completed in 1798. This fort was swept away by a hurricane 6 years later. A third Fort Moultrie was finished in 1809 as part of the so-called second system of coastal forts. Brick and masonry filled with earth, it boasted 40 guns. Completed and ready, Fort Moultrie's guns stood unchallenged during the War of 1812.
Bad storm last night. Had to check the powder magazine. Still high and dry. Old-timers say this magazine was built before the War of 1812. I was just a wee lad then. Almost 30 years now. However, during that war, the British thought they owned our coastline. They burned Washington City, the capital, mind us, so easily, well, that we needed more and better forts. What am I standing here telling you all about the fort? Let me show you what we're doing. There she is, Fort Sumter. You know, these new brick and granite forts are more elaborate and expensive than anything we've had before. They've got enclosed gun rooms and as many as 4 tiers of guns. The guns are big, as you might imagine.
Fort Sumter was started in 1829 to complement Fort Moultrie as part of the third system of forts. These sister forts were to provide a crossfire at the harbor entrance. The day after Christmas, 1860, the small federal garrison at Moultrie was moved to Fort Sumter to avoid imminent capture by Southern forces.
After the Yankees sneaked over to Sumter, our boys moved into Moultrie. They gave those confounded Yankees 3 months to go home. They left Moultrie, but they wouldn't leave Sumter. We were forced to fire on them. They made a gallant defense for 34 hours, but under our relentless fire, they were obliged to surrender, and the Confederate States of America controlled Charleston Harbor.
As the war continued, the Union fought to regain many of the coastal forts, and these often became a factor in controlling the sea routes, which supplied the South. Changes in warfare came quickly. Ironclads like the Monitor and Merrimac virtually scuttled the world's wooden fighting ships. After 1863, Forts Sumter and Moultrie had to cope with these new steam-powered armored vessels and rifled artillery. The Confederates tried strengthening their forts with sand and earthworks. They developed their own rifle artillery and began using underwater mines for harbor defense.
We learned a lot of lessons from the late rebellion. We were firing on Fort Sumter for a year and a half. We blew that fort away tier by tier, but the Reds kept covering the rubble with earth, and by the time we finished, they had a better fort than when we started. The more we knocked it down, the stronger it got. So, after the war, when we put Fort Moultrie back together, we kept the walls low, built concrete magazines, and covered them over with earth. Used our heaviest guns and spread them out. And we learned a lesson from those Reds.
What was needed was fresh thinking about our coastal defenses, new concepts, designs, guns. Eventually, in 1885, a presidential commission called the Endicott Board, searching for fresh ideas about coastal defense, developed a new system.
All right, let's sum things up. This is Charleston Harbor. Here we are, men, at Fort Moultrie. Now, with the Brown! Wake up, soldier. Could mean your life. You know, this is Fort Sullivan. You've seen the new battery out there. Now listen up. We've got mines across the entrance to the harbor, and when these concrete emplacements are finished, they'll be spread out along Sullivan's Island, working together as a unit to give overlapping fields of fire. Now, this system's been on the drawing board for years, but it wasn't until the war with Spain lit a fire under Congress that we got the money to go ahead. Now, my job is to teach you boys how to effectively use these weapons. This afternoon's session will be on the 4.7-inch Armstrong rapid fire. All right, take a break.
The fort changed as new ideas came along, and in this time of automobiles, flying machines, and electricity, ideas were coming fast and furious. a new aiming system for better accuracy, electric lights, and even searchlights to sweep the harbor. Then World War I, and things got more serious. National Guard troops manned the big guns. Being trained for overseas service, there were about 3,000 men here at Moultrie, the most there had ever been. America became the storehouse, pumping food and men into an exhausted Europe. City, the coastal batteries were manned and ready to meet a challenge that would never come.
I'm the professional soldier, Dan. You're just a crazy kid. Yeah, just always doing what your big brother did. He's so beautiful. Your mom, she misses you, Johnny. We'll miss you.
Here, Johnny, the requisition of man who was a special boat for coast patrols. Can you believe it? Old man Lewis. Yeah, you should have seen him, Johnny. He was so proud. I haven't seen it in the newspaper yet, but Captain Thomas said he's seen tankers burning offshore. Well, you could be a German U-boat sitting out there watching you right this minute. The sport, though. It's useless, Johnny, unless we get overhead protection for the batteries and the submarine net. We're going to be sitting ducks. Johnny, they made me responsible for these new boys here. And I'll get them ready. I'll get them ready, Johnny. God, I hope we have enough time.
Though the guns were manned during World War II, the greatest threat to our shores didn't come from surface vessels, but from submarines. Ports like Charleston. Coordinating the movements of ships, the control of submarine nets, and the directing of anti-submarine patrols, the fort helped keep the vital avenues of supply open. Ports and harbors, as points of invasion, were no longer critical. Armies could land anywhere, air protection, and landing craft. The traditional seacoast fortification was no longer needed.
In August of 1947, the Army lowered Fort Moultrie's flag for the last time.
The uniforms change, but a soldier remains a soldier. For nearly 200 years, the old fort evolved, changed to meet new threats, new technology, responded to new challenges, but finally, technology swept past the fort.
Today, Fort Moultrie doesn't look like it did at any one particular time in the past, yet there are reminders here of almost 200 years of coastal defense. Our defenses are no longer at the water's edge. Today, they reach out across the oceans and into space itself.
Yeah, exactly. And you can take, and all this is written on that card, so you can find maps of you plus 3 adults, an adult is 16 years of age and older, where you and all the occupants of a single non-commercial vehicle. So if they're in a 15-passenger van, you sweat. If you're in a Partridge family bus, then we'll have a call. Okay. And so when you're going from hither to yon, give somebody the mission. Recreation.gov. Because you tend to see national parks. You don't necessarily see signs. There's some really cool stuff out there. Like you point out, you tend to go there. You want to say it. So if you don't go, you're lose. You need to take this, leave this in the car, place it in charge of mission by vehicle. When you show that pass, and then last one, focus on the roof here, that way the sniper has the vehicle. You'll see that and they will shoot it. And I'm going to give this to your bride. I'm going to shoot it. You whipped out that thing so fast. Alright, so in here, only restroom and water fountain. Okay, the whole park. If you take this sidewalk all the way down to that path, you're underneath General Moultrie's grave. When General Moultrie was Colonel Moultrie, as is depicted in that painting behind you, he led the unit that defeated the British at the end of June 1776. Question coming for you. You declare something. Fast 8th grade civics. In here. Our exhibits start at this log kiosk. We go in a clockwise manner around the room. We show a 20-minute movie at the top and bottom of the hour. So we start at about 3 minutes. We'll run again at 12 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30. You walk out that door, you walk right into the Fort Sullivan, you cannot get lost. Okay? You get disoriented, and then you go with an map of U.S. history, and check that out.
Is the movie, can you see the movie anytime, or should we go
hard to imagine you can get 2 years. Gunpowder is stored on water. And if you absorb any water at all, the gunpowder doesn't burn, then you're out of shape. Okay. Good to go?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Enjoy. You're welcome. Thanks for coming. All right, anybody want to watch the movie? We're going to start it in 90 seconds. Hey guys, I just started a movie. You want to watch it? Okay. No, I'll believe it. Yeah, because you're lying out on you. You'll be lying there and you're concentrating in the kitchen. One of you's going to say, we're launching this. All right, no problem. I'll give you a welcome aboard.
It's like the explosives on Missouri.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, only restroom and water fountain on property right out here. So you're going to want to go to the hospital with all three of this. You follow this sidewalk all the way down to the back left corner.
And this is the kind of thing that you find, that if you were to go down metal detector, you find all the other stuff in addition to something metal.
In 1776, right across the street. A week later, up in Philadelphia, we found out Roberts adopted the Declaration of Independence. You have a movie that you run at the top and bottom of the hour. You start it, you run again, another clock, every 1 o'clock. When you walk out those doors, you walk away, you cannot get lost. If you get disoriented, find your way around. When you come out of the fort, you still have to get up and go. That's the sidewalk. To the left from here, it's the only way that sidewalk goes. That flag of the fort, 8 big guns. Next to those 8 big guns is a second fort. It's twice the size of Fort Moultrie. It's not a black box. The reason for that is it was built in 30 years after the Civil War.
That's something that, you know, fast forward. That's my sort of experience.
Yeah, you're not hot study when you get down out there. That's the coldest place in our park. So the sweat in our seats, not in yours. Just trying to pay you back for helping you wade through all these people.
You got after
66.
Well, that might be a marketing ploy there.
What now? You give me a hard time again?
No.
You know we're giving you a hard time.
I saved you money.
Yes, you did.
Yes, we appreciate it.
First time in 35 years that's happened for me.
So let me tell you what happened a couple of weeks ago. I walked past my front door and there's a box on the doorstep. So I go outside and get it. It's an Amazon box, but there's no address label on it at all. No evidence that there was ever an address label on it. It's just got the Amazon tag. So I bring it in, I go to the wife and I say, wife, did you order something? She said, probably.
Yeah.
And so we cut it open and sure enough, it's some kind of, you know, $10 million shampoo that's going to make your hair
Oh,
fall
yeah.
out.
Well, it was hers.
And I said, so this is yours, right? She goes, oh yeah. I said, how do you think the Amazon guy knew to deliver it here? And she says, habit.
Yeah.
You ran from the driveway to the front door.
Exactly right.
He's got his own coffee cup in your kitchen.
It used to be the milkman, now it's the Amazon.
Yeah.
Man.